The marble floors of the Riverside Community Center gleamed under the crystal chandeliers as Marcus Chun pushed his cleaning cart through the grand ballroom. His rubber-soled shoes squeaked softly against the polished surface, the only sound breaking the pre-dawn silence. Through the tall windows, the city still slept in darkness, but inside, preparations for tonight's charity gala had transformed the space into something magical. Marcus paused near the stage where workers had assembled a gleaming dance floor. His calloused hands gripped the mop handle a little tighter as memories flickered through his mind. Once he had moved across floors like this with grace and purpose, his body speaking the language of music in ways that words never could. A wheelchair sat empty near the piano, forgotten by whoever had left it there during yesterday's setup. Marcus approached it carefully, running his fingers along the metal frame. He had seen its young owner before, a girl who always seemed to be watching from the shadows whenever the dance instructors held their sessions. The morning light began filtering through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. Soon, the event coordinators would arrive with their clipboards and commanding voices, transforming this peaceful sanctuary back into a world where he existed only on the periphery. By 9 o'clock, the ballroom buzzed with activity. Event staff rushed between tables, adjusting centerpieces and testing sound equipment. Marcus continued his work methodically, staying invisible as always when a sharp voice cut through the noise. "Excuse me, you there with the cart," Richard Pemberton called out, his expensive suit and gold watch marking him as someone who expected immediate attention. "You're completely in the way of our setup crew." Marcus looked up from polishing a nearby mirror. "I'm sorry, sir. I can move to another section." "That's not the point," Pemberton snapped, his voice loud enough to draw stares from nearby workers. "Tonight we have some of the city's most distinguished guests attending this gala. We cannot have maintenance staff wandering around during the event like they own the place." Heat crept up Marcus's neck, but he kept his voice steady. "I understand. I'll make sure to stay in the back areas during the evening." "You'll stay out of sight completely," Pemberton continued, enjoying his audience. "People like you need to remember your place. This is a sophisticated affair, not some community center dance where anyone can just waltz in." From across the room, 12-year-old Sophie Whitmore watched from her wheelchair, her dark eyes taking in every cruel word. Her hands clenched the armrests as she witnessed the public humiliation of the kind man who had always nodded hello to her during her therapy sessions. That evening, Marcus arrived home to a small apartment where 80-year-old Lily Chun sat at their kitchen table, her homework spread across the scratched surface. She looked up with bright eyes as he hung his work jacket on the back of a chair. "How was work today, Papa?" she asked, her pencil still moving across her math worksheet. Marcus smiled, the tension from Pemberton's words beginning to fade. "Just another day, sweetheart. How was school?" "Mrs. Rodriguez showed us pictures of famous dancers today," Lily said, her voice filled with excitement. "There was this one man who could jump so high it looked like he was flying. It reminded me of the videos you show me of you and Mama." Marcus's chest tightened. On their dresser sat a framed photo of him and Elena in their performance costumes, caught mid-leap during their final recital together. Those had been different days, when stages welcomed them and audiences applauded their artistry. "Your Mama was the real talent," he said quietly, moving to check her homework. "I just try to keep up with her grace." "But you were both beautiful together," Lily insisted. "Maybe someday you could dance again?" Marcus kissed the top of her head, avoiding the question he couldn't answer. After Elena's diagnosis, the medical bills and treatments had consumed everything. Dancing became a luxury he could no longer afford. In her penthouse bedroom, Sophie Whitmore sat alone watching ballet videos on her tablet. The dancers moved with effortless beauty across the screen while she traced their movements with her finger, imagining herself spinning and leaping beside them. Her legs, weakened by cerebral palsy, remained still beneath her silk blanket. Victoria Whitmore stood in the doorway, her business suit still crisp despite the long day of board meetings. "Sophie, you should be sleeping. Tomorrow is the gala. Will there be dancing?" Sophie asked hopefully, not looking away from the screen. Of course, darling. The city's finest dancers will be performing for our guests. Sophie's face fell slightly. Will I be able to watch them up close? Victoria's expression softened with guilt she tried to hide. We'll see. You know how crowded these events can become. What Victoria didn't say was how the other wealthy families whispered when Sophie appeared at social gatherings. How children stared or looked away uncomfortably. How much easier it was to keep her daughter safely tucked away from judgment. After Victoria left, Sophie continued watching the dancers, her small hands moving in rhythm with the music. She had memorized every step, every graceful gesture, storing them in her heart like precious treasures. Tomorrow night, she would find a way to see the real dancers, even if she had to watch from the shadows again. The charity gala was in full swing when Marcus noticed the commotion near the refreshment table. Sophie's wheelchair had become wedged between two chairs that someone had carelessly pushed together. She struggled quietly, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment as elegantly dressed guests stepped around her without a glance. Marcus abandoned his cleaning supplies and approached carefully. "Let me help you with that," he said gently, moving the chairs aside with practiced ease. "Thank you," Sophie whispered, her eyes downcast. "Everyone's probably staring." "Actually, they're all watching the dancers on stage," Marcus replied, nodding toward the performance area where a classical ballet was underway. "You have a good view from here." Sophie looked up, and Marcus noticed her fingers moving subtly in time with the music. Her movements were precise, following the choreography with surprising accuracy. "You know this piece?" he asked. Her face brightened. "It's from Giselle. The dancers are approaching the Willis scene, where the spirits dance the men to death. See how the prima ballerina extends her port de bras? She's showing Giselle's torn between love and vengeance." Marcus stared at the young girl in amazement. Her technical knowledge surpassed that of many professional dancers he had known. "That's remarkable. You really understand the story." "I watch them all the time," Sophie admitted. "I know I can't dance like them, but I can feel the music." As the ballet performance ended, Marcus found himself lingering near Sophie's wheelchair instead of returning to his duties. The orchestra began a new piece, and he watched her face transform with recognition. "Coppelia," she said softly, her eyes closed as she listened. "This is the mazurka from Act 1. Most people think it's just party music, but it's actually showing how the townspeople are being fooled by Dr. Coppelius." Marcus felt his own body responding to the familiar rhythm. His weight shifted almost imperceptibly from foot to foot, his shoulders beginning to move with the music. Years of muscle memory stirred beneath his janitor's uniform. Sophie opened her eyes and caught him swaying. "You feel it too," she said, not as a question, but as recognition. "I used to," Marcus admitted, then found himself moving more deliberately. His feet traced small patterns on the marble floor, his arms lifting slightly as the melody built. The movements were subtle, respectful of his surroundings, but unmistakably professional. "You're a real dancer," Sophie breathed, her face glowing with excitement. "I can tell by how you listen to the music with your whole body." Marcus stopped, suddenly self-conscious. "I was once upon a time." "Dance is forever," Sophie said with surprising wisdom. "My physical therapist says bodies remember what hearts never forget." The music swelled around them, and Marcus felt something awakening that he had buried for too long. The orchestra transitioned into a gentle waltz, and Marcus noticed Sophie's hands moving expressively in her lap. The ballroom had momentarily emptied as guests moved to the adjacent dining room for dinner service. "Would you like to dance?" Marcus asked impulsively. Sophie's eyes widened. "I can't really dance." "Everyone can dance," Marcus said, positioning himself beside her wheelchair. "May I?" She nodded, and Marcus gently took her hands, lifting them into proper waltz position. He began to move around her chair in a slow circle, his steps flowing with the music while guiding her arms through graceful movements. Sophie's face transformed with wonder as Marcus spun her wheelchair in careful quarter turns, incorporating the motion into their dance. Her upper body swayed, naturally with the rhythm, while her hands traced beautiful patterns through the air under his guidance. "Feel how the music wants to lift you," Marcus whispered, his professional training emerging as he adapted each movement to include her. Dance isn't just about legs and feet. It's about how your heart speaks to the melody. For 3 magical minutes, they moved together across the empty ballroom. Marcus's years of experience allowed him to create something entirely new, a partner dance that honored both their abilities and limitations. Sophie laughed with pure joy, her movements becoming more confident as the music carried them both beyond the boundaries of their everyday lives. Victoria Whitmore stepped into the ballroom looking for Sophie, expecting to find her daughter sitting quietly in a corner as usual. Instead, she froze at the sight before her. A janitor was dancing with her daughter, spinning Sophie's wheelchair with practiced grace while her child's face radiated pure happiness. Victoria's first instinct was protective fury. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Victoria's voice cut through the music like ice. Marcus immediately stopped, releasing Sophie's hands and stepping back. "Ma'am, you were just touching my daughter without permission," Victoria snapped, her business instincts taking over. "She has medical conditions that require careful handling." "Mama, please," Sophie interjected, her voice stronger than Victoria had heard in months. "He was teaching me to dance. Look what I can do." Sophie began moving her arms in the patterns Marcus had shown her, her upper body swaying with newfound confidence. The joy on her face was undeniable. Victoria felt her anger waver as she watched her daughter's transformation. For the first time in years, Sophie looked truly alive, her movements flowing with natural grace despite her physical limitations. "I'm sorry for overstepping," Marcus said quietly. "Sophie has remarkable natural ability. She understands music in ways that many trained dancers never achieve." Victoria stared at this maintenance worker who spoke about dance with obvious expertise, seeing her daughter in a way that others never had. Richard Pemberton's voice boomed across the ballroom as he strode toward them, his face red with indignation. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you, Chun. What part of stay out of sight did you not understand?" Marcus straightened, his protective instincts flaring as Pemberton's aggressive approach frightened Sophie. "I was helping a guest who needed assistance." "Helping?" Pemberton scoffed, his voice dripping with contempt. "You were inappropriately touching a disabled child. That's grounds for immediate termination and possible criminal charges." Sophie's face went pale at the cruel words. Victoria's jaw tightened as she watched her daughter shrink back into her chair. Furthermore, Pemberton continued, enjoying his audience, "This is exactly why people like you don't belong around our clientele. You have no sense of boundaries or appropriate behavior." "That's enough," Victoria said sharply, stepping forward. Pemberton turned to her with a patronizing smile. "Mrs. Whitmore, I understand your concern, but please don't worry. I'll have security escort him out immediately and ensure he never works another event in this city." Marcus felt his world crumbling. Without this job, he couldn't support Lily. "Please, Mr. Pemberton, I meant no harm. The road to hell is paved with good intentions," Pemberton sneered. "Pack your things. You're finished here." Victoria looked between her trembling daughter and the man who had brought light to Sophie's eyes for the first time in years. The orchestra, unaware of the confrontation, began the evening's final piece. The opening notes of Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto filled the ballroom, and Marcus felt something snap inside him. Years of suppressed artistry surged forward. "You want to see inappropriate behavior?" Marcus said quietly, removing his janitor's jacket. "Let me show you what I really am." He stepped onto the dance floor as the music swelled. His body transformed, every line becoming purposeful and elegant. He began with simple movements that grew increasingly complex, his technique flawless as he executed grand jetés that seemed to defy gravity. Guests began filtering back from dinner, drawn by gasps from those who witnessed his stunning display. Marcus poured years of grief, sacrifice, and hidden dreams into each movement. He danced for Elena, for Lily, for Sophie, and for every person who had been dismissed because of their circumstances. His turns were razor-sharp, his extensions perfect, his emotional expression raw and powerful. This wasn't just technical skill, but the artistry of someone who had trained at the highest levels of professional dance. Sophie watched with tears streaming down her face, finally seeing the full magnitude of the gift Marcus had shared with her. Victoria stood transfixed, recognizing world-class talent that had been hiding in plain sight. Even Pemberton fell silent, his condescending smirk fading as he realized he was witnessing something extraordinary from a man he had just humiliated. As Marcus's performance ended, the ballroom erupted in spontaneous applause. Victoria stepped forward, her business mind already calculating possibilities while her heart swelled with recognition of true artistry. "Mr. Pemberton," Victoria said, her voice carrying the authority that had built her empire, "you're mistaken about this man's qualifications." Pemberton sputtered, "Mrs. Whitmore, he's just a janitor he's a professionally trained dancer who just gave the most extraordinary performance I've seen in years," Victoria interrupted. "Marcus, isn't it? Tell me about your background." Marcus caught his breath, still processing what had just happened. "I studied at Juilliard, performed with the Metropolitan Opera Ballet for 6 years before my wife's illness. And you've been working maintenance to support your family," Victoria concluded, the full picture becoming clear. "Mr. Pemberton, you just tried to fire someone who could revolutionize dance education for children with disabilities." Sophie wheeled forward, her face radiant. "He made me feel like I could really dance, Mama. Like I was beautiful." Victoria knelt beside her daughter's chair, seeing the confidence that had bloomed in just one evening. "Marcus, I have a proposition. My foundation has been trying to establish an adaptive dance program. Would you consider directing it?" Marcus stared, hardly daring to believe what he was hearing. "I would be honored." Pemberton's face had turned ashen as he realized his career-ending mistake. 3 months later, the Riverside Community Center's new adaptive dance studio buzzed with laughter and music. Marcus watched as Sophie led a group of children through movements he had choreographed specifically for their abilities. Her confidence had blossomed into natural leadership. "Remember, dance lives in your heart first," Sophie told a shy boy in leg braces, her voice echoing Marcus's own words. "Let the music tell your body what to do." Lily bounced excitedly in the corner, watching her father work with students who ranged from wheelchair users to children with various physical challenges. The program had a waiting list of over 50 families. Victoria stood in the observation area, speaking with parents whose children had found new joy through Marcus's innovative teaching methods. The foundation's investment had already shown remarkable results in building confidence and community. Marcus felt Elena's presence in these moments, knowing she would be proud of how their loss had transformed into purpose. His professional skills had found their truest calling, creating beauty and belonging for children who had been overlooked. As the session ended, Sophie rolled up to him with a radiant smile. "Thank you for seeing me that night. Thank you for reminding me who I really am," Marcus replied, watching his students leave with their heads held higher than when they arrived. If this story touched your heart, please drop a comment and let us know about a time when you saw someone's hidden talent shine, or share your favorite moment from Marcus and Sophie's journey.